Welcome to part 3, Delivering Lift. As a reminder, I'm Samantha Harden, the principal investigator of Lift, and Lift stands for Lifelong Improvements Through Fitness Together. This program was originally developed by Extension for Extension within Virginia Cooperative Extension and has since expanded to a number of other states, and maybe your state or your county is next. The learning objectives for this section are to be able to perform the lift exercises, the balance, strength, and flexibility, to facilitate communication among participants during class, to be able to implement seamless inclusion of group dynamics principles so that we're really focusing on the physical and social benefits of our lift program. First, I'll start by talking about Leadership 101. Many extension professionals or lift instructors are not certified fitness instructors. One of the analogies I learned really early in my tenure within the extension system is just like not all agents within the system are registered dietitians, not all extension agents are going to be certified fitness instructors, but we can still talk about nutrition and physical activity in safe and healthful ways. So this is really, you can do a deep dive, you can get your own certification, or if you're already certified, please let us know if we've missed anything about leading in a physical activity space. But these are our 4 key principles for Leadership 101. What we know about a physical activity space is that transformational leadership is really based on an exchange of energy and ideas. And one way we do that is through communication. Clear communication where I feel confident and competent in the moves I'm trying to instruct, as well as communication among the bodies and people who are showing up in front of me. We'll talk a little bit about the differences of doing this in person and virtually later in the training. But in general, just communicating about what to expect, what the program includes, why we're doing certain movements, and other things like that. One of the ways to learn about why you're doing certain movements is to head to parsilab.org/lift, where there's actually a document that says why we do each of the moves, what that's connected to in our daily lives. What we know from the literature is that people sometimes just really like knowing the why behind the thing they're being invited to do. So one of the reasons communication is so important is that the participant gets a roadmap of what to expect from you, from the class, and from the benefits of the program. The second piece is individual attention. We really like to focus this individual attention on positive feedback. So thinking about maybe your own experiences where people will say, oh, great form, or keep up the good work, or you've got this. These little terms go a long way. One of the things that in our lift training program manual, and as we're going to continue to dive into how to deliver the class, we like to focus the individual attention on things that we're seeing that are positive rather than constructive criticism. So if you see that someone is really using momentum to get into the posture or the shape or the pose or the exercise, we would rather you say something like, great job keeping your elbow towards your side, Samantha, instead of saying, Samantha, stop using your range of motion to get into the movement. So that goes back to the communication and the individual attention. So keeping the individual attention on things that people are doing well instead of places that they can improve. Then you can provide generalized feedback about things that you see, different cues you can pair it to ensure safety throughout the moves. The next piece is really important, particularly as we're engaging with community folks and people across the lifespan and different fitness levels, is that there should always be a provision of choice. You can say, you can stay seated or you can join me standing. We also have a document that has a if then. For example, if it's okay to lift your shoulder up towards your ear, then lean to the side. But this might be stop 1. or reaching the arm up in parallel may be step one. So just seeing what the range of motion is and cueing that there's base moves and there's additions. None is better than the other, but staying within your range of motion and giving them the providing them with choice as to what they do within the different moves. And then the fourth thing, of course, within Lift is to foster social engagement through a more social environment. Sometimes when we go to physical activity classes or programs, we're really listening to the instructor, we're really tuned in, and it's very structured and it's based on the exercise, where we would like our number one core element of Lift to really show up, which is to have fun. So once you've gone through the orientation and about session 3 or 4, people will already know the moves and they know that they can visually follow along as you're cueing through your own movement in your own body. And then there's an opportunity to say, to use those group dynamic strategies that are available per session so that we can start to get at those deep level similarities or opportunities to just foster social support and social connection. So just keeping these 4 leadership principles in mind are really going to help the environment and the way that the program is delivered. And you're really planting the seed for trust with you, but also interaction among each other so that they're not looking to you as the gatekeeper of the program or of their health, but rather that they feel empowered that they are the group and they are moving forward together. A couple more pieces about our training program. Lift is really focused on safety. If you remember from the previous modules, we do this mostly by staying within the range of motion and not using momentum to get into the moves. The third layer of how we engage in safety is by matching all of the movements we do with movements of daily living. So let's think about the movement in the bottom right corner here. We call this the chair sit and stand instead of a squat. And that language just helps to make it a little bit more accessible, but it really is about we're sitting and standing from the toilet, from chairs, even from our cars. And the more that we're able to do these moves, the more we'll be able to age in place. And so these moves were specifically chosen because they are safe for most people in most bodies. However, we also have a fourth layer of safety by doing the physical activity readiness questionnaire, where you ask about their current physical activity, if there's any contraindications or reasons they should not be active, and then they can seek physician guidance on whether or not this program is safe and effective for them. As a gentle reminder, Lift really is a basic strength training and aerobic and fruit and vegetable consumption program. So if somebody is really active in their life already, they might be better served as a Lift instructor than a Lift participant. And we can talk about that in a few more slides as well. Another piece of our training program is that we're really thinking about sustainability. So as I mentioned, maybe somebody hears about Lift and they think they want to participate, but they're not really the target audience because they used to be a triathlete and now they're just a 75-year-old retired triathlete looking to be active. So we really want to find what are the community resources? Who might be a really great instructor? How can I train them and have them as part of my team to deliver the program? The other thing is that in the program manual, we also have what's called a shared use agreement, where a specific facility or space might be able to host an ongoing Lift program so that someone who participated could ultimately deliver the program and they can continue on with the activities. If they don't want to continue with the activities and they want more variety, then there's also that core element of finding those community linkages. What other programs exist? What might be available? What are some maybe discounts that you could foster or supply? And the next piece of our program is that it's really based on individual behavior change strategies as well. So it's not just come in, exercise, and move. We have goal setting, we have self-monitoring, and feedback. And the simplest example that we have around this is the tracking of our aerobic activity outside of class. So we know where we started, where we want to go, and where we are currently. And that's one of the ways to make this a program that is also sustainable at the individual level and the community or setting level. And then our final principle is that we engage with group dynamics behavior change strategies. This means that every session has some sort of prompt or reflection or cue to really say, how can we leverage the strength of the group? What are some of the things that we've all experienced, or what are our unique experiences, and then some of the resources that exist within our community, rather than thinking you as the instructor have to have all the answers. What's been really beautiful over the last few years is seeing that the people in the group have a lot of great suggestions for each other, and letting that organically happen and holding space for that during the discussion as well, or after the program, if that's easier for you as the instructor. So I've been mentioning all of our sessions multiple times and what you might expect from them. This is a snapshot from our program manual. And this slide, I'll go through what you can really expect from the program manual, the session, the materials, and how you might run a full lift session. So this is an example of session 1. You'll see at the top that we have session objectives outlined. We also share certain considerations for preparation. So you as the instructor might want to print these out, or you review them on the website beforehand and know which things you need to pack or bring so that you can deliver the program effectively. And then provide the session outline so that you can still stick to your hour, your 60 minutes that you have for your commitment. And then we have our group activity. This one is an example of an active name game. I'll walk us through that in just a moment. And then homework or reminders. Remembering that education is the foundation for extension. So this is not just about come in, exercise, and leave, but rather learning different backgrounds around why I'm doing certain activities, goal setting, thought-provoking things that we can include just by sprinkling them in within our 60-minute class. So each of our sessions have these objectives, preparation, outline, group activity, and homework reminders / takeaway. So if we look at session 1, our objective is to introduce the program components. So just like I'm doing for you, kind of introducing what are the core elements and what to expect, and then an introduction to the group members. Many people deliver lift in community centers or retirement homes or spaces where people do know each other's names, but we can still start with the group name game as a way to have fun. And sometimes you might have interacted with someone. I know I have in my personal life, where I've interacted with someone so many times I should know their name, but I don't. And I don't necessarily have a tool or a practice to be able to find out their name. So this is just a way to make sure that everyone's on the same page. In this preparation, we do need chairs for each participant. I'm currently in a rolly chair. I know I wouldn't want to have a chair with wheels for my lift class, so just making sure you have sturdy chairs available for them. For session 1, you're the only person who needs your weights or your dumbbells, or you can go weight free, but sometimes it's nice to have them just to show folks what they can expect. A reminder to your participants to bring a water bottle and a regular sized bath towel if they like. The bath towel could be, yes, for sweat, but also we roll it up and use it in one of the activities. Some other folks have used pool noodles instead of bath towels, but that's just an example of the level of detail that the program manual will provide. And then you may want to print the physical activity and fruit and vegetable trackers for everyone and just read through your orientation. So on parseylab.org/lift, we also have a slide deck where you can walk through a very participant-centered version of what I'm sharing with you so that you can do an overview of the program and what to expect. If you don't have an opportunity to use the audio visual, you can also print those out as well. But that 10-minute overview is available to get everybody on the same page. Then we move to the active name game, which is listed under the session outline under group activity. So all participants standing in a circle or seated, and the facilitator instruct the group members to begin walking in place. You ask a volunteer, someone within the circle, to make up a move that alliterates with the sound of their first name. So I might be spinning Samantha, salsa Samantha, squatting Samantha, some sort of physical activity that I do that I can demonstrate in my body for others and help them try to remember my name. So we might have something like high knees Henry or jumping Jane or anything else. What we've also seen as an incredible adaptation to this is that sometimes people will share an activity that they like crocheting Courtney or something like that. So it doesn't have to be an actual exercise to be something to use for this warm up. And then jumping back up into the outline after the active name game, doing the 8 exercises with no weights, the cool down and the stretch, and then reminder for homework. So this is an opportunity to remind folks that they may feel sore in some of their muscle groups that they haven't moved before, start accumulating up to 30 minutes of walking and tracking physical activity, thinking of a group name, and then when you'll see them next. So it's just a real quick process so that you can feel like you have so many materials from our program manual on our website. So it kind of takes some of the guessing or the questioning out of it, but it's also available for adaptations as you need, as long as you're progressing through these behavior change strategies at the individual level and the group level. And as I mentioned, this is a very adaptable practice. You can use weights or no weights. You can have resources that people have in their homes, such as a towel or a t-shirt. You can do this program with 5 to 8 pound dumbbells or no weights. You can also just smile, enjoy, engage, and try to encourage people to meet themselves where they are and not overdo it. So again, staying within the range of motion and maybe seeing themselves progress over time. So we'll talk a little bit about equipment in a future slide, but I do want to share here that some instructors invite people to buy their own weights so that they can match the amount of weight that would be challenging for them. Maybe it's a 1 pound or a 2 pound or an 8 pound or a 15 pound, just depending on their own previous physical activity behaviors for that participant. Other lift instructors purchase a set for a class so that people can pick and choose the weights and then you bring those weights around. Other states have a library system where maybe a couple of different instructors have access to that same set and you just kind of rent or borrow them as needed. So just as a reminder, you can do it with or without weights that you as the instructor purchase and lend, or inviting your participants to buy their own weights as well. So not only is this a physically adaptable program, it's also adaptable in terms of how well do your participants already know each other, or what types of aerobic activity are they getting outside of class? And I wanted to just show another example of a session guide. We have session 2 as a snapshot here. As you might recall from just a couple slides ago, it has the session objective, preparation, the outline, the group activity, what you might cover in nutrition basics, and your homework and your reminder. And you'll start to see that it's really building, like the very first day is orientation, overview, introductions. And then we start to progress throughout the rest of the 15 sessions for a total of 16 to really help bring in the education, the basics. One of the things I really like about session 2 is that we're establishing a group name, and this provides a sense of group distinctiveness. So they could be the Aged Avengers, the Gladiators, the whatever serves them. Maybe there's a way that they incorporate the community or neighborhood or facility that they're all engaged with, or where they are. So just thinking about different ways to say, instead, they could just say, I'm going to my lift class, or they could be like the Lynchburg lifters, or they might be the lifelong lifters. It doesn't have to necessarily be an alliteration, but it could be, and just providing an opportunity for people to work together and create their own name and engage in creativity. And this helps also from a cognitive and social and enjoyment perspective, going back to our number one core element, which is having fun. You'll also see on this slide, under preparation, it says print the I can, I will, I must cards for participants. Each participant receives one card. This is an example of the I can, I will, I must cards on the right. So I can, as an individual goal, I can increase my weights over the length of the session. I will attend 80 to 90% of the sessions and participate in the phone tree. That's one of our group dynamic strategies. If participants would like to share their number, then if somebody's absent, someone can call and say, hey, we missed you last time, or call for friendly reminders. And the I must is this long-term goal of continue seeing progress even after the sessions are complete. So as you can see from this example, there's no prescription. It's just something that works for your own individual short-term goal, the group goal, and a long-term goal, something that's positive and encouraging so that they can come back to this. It could be as simple as I can show up and do my best. I will support others during discussion and listen to their shares, and I must keep up with physical activities so that I can take my dog on my boat. That's one of the examples that the individuals who were part of our promotional video were sharing about. So it can be as personal as you want or as generalizable as you want. We also have multiple versions of our exercise flip chart. We are aware that we created this version of the exercise flip chart during the latter parts of the pandemic. So everybody is masked here. You do not have to wear masks during the program, but it's also an opportunity for anybody to choose what they would like to do if you are physically getting together in person with the participants. And on the left side of the screen, we also have an example of the exercise flip chart that walks us through all of the moves from our wide leg squat, our standing leg curl, knee extension, side hip raise, bicep curl, overhead press, seated row, toe stand, then moving into our balance move of tree stand, and then our stretching and balancing of seated figure 4, pyramid, half moon, and then our back scratch stretch. Some of these moves are really specified in our functional fitness assessment. So we're really trying to see those improvements in range of motion, lower body and upper body strength, and flexibility. And now what you've all been waiting for, an example of a lift class. To wrap up this session, LIFT is a dynamic program that really thinks about you as the leader, the instructor who can engage in communication, providing choice, incorporating individual level strategies, group-based behavior change strategies, and a structured evidence-based exercise sequence. With that, the next part of the training is to actually watch a full-length video of a lift class. You can hear the instructor cueing the different moves. You can follow along as well. And then once you finish watching that, we'll come back to more slides and more information about how to deliver the program in your community. But with this, we'll break so that you can experience what it's like to hear the cues and try the moves in your own body. Welcome. One of the key parts of the LIFT program, or Lifelong Improvements Through Fitness Together, is 2 days of full body strength training that includes stretching, and balance exercises. I'm going to demonstrate each of the moves with a couple of key cues that you might use within your class. Remember, there's a full-length class you can also listen to, as well as other resources on the website, including if-then statements, etc. But this is just one way for you to get a little bit more familiar with the sequence and some of the major cues that we do, particularly in the beginning when the participants are learning all about lift and its moves. To get started, we start with a warm-up, an opportunity to just get the blood pumping and get moving in your body. It can be as simple as marching in place. If this is too high of an intensity, feel free to tap out just to start to get moving. We also have a sequence, a 5-minute warm-up that you might want to use as well. It's also featured in our Eating Smart, Being Active, or ESBA course curriculum as well. So if you're familiar with that extension program, it can be the same moves. Or you can ask people to demonstrate different moves. As long as you're talking and moving, you're warming up. So you can just demonstrate different moves in your body, incorporating upper body and lower body to start to get into that more cardiovascular phase. Again, offering multiple different options, including just tapping out instead of stepping out, or if someone wants to increase their intensity, they might be hopping side to side. So it's just getting a little bit of movement however we want. My favorite way to warm up would be to find your favorite song or create a playlist with your participants and just move and dance and take it a little less seriously, because one of our 8 core elements of lift is just to have fun. So just warming up and moving the body. Once you've spent about 5 minutes warming up and moving the body, welcoming and greeting all of your participants, whether you're in person or online, we move into the strength training sequence. I often invite participants to have a sip of water after the 5-minute warm-up and then take a seat in their chair. I like a chair without wheels so that I know it's not going anywhere. Starting from a seated position, hands crossed at the chest. Hands can be on the thighs or anywhere else that feels comfortable for the participant, particularly if they came in using any type of support or device to help them stand up and down out of the chair. It's our chair, sit, and stand that they'll be familiar with from our functional fitness assessment. So hands by the side or down and rising up and sitting down to hover, or all the way back down, whatever your participant needs. Just cueing that we're rising up and sitting down. One of the things in these strength training moves is to make sure we're moving nice and slowly to really feel the muscles fire up, staying in our range of motion. So maybe from standing to seated without coming all the way down to the chair, or maybe using the chair and going a little bit more slowly. One of the biggest questions we often get asked from our instructors is, how many repetitions do we need to do, or how much weight? But what we have seen over the last couple of years is that it's going to vary for everyone. So move in your body as it feels comfortable. We typically recommend 2 sets of 8, and you can count that out, cue it out, and have as much weight on the ankle weights as you prefer. One of the biggest questions we often get asked is, how many repetitions, for how long, at what weight? But what we know from community-based education and physical activity programs is that you're going to get a whole cross-section of individuals. Some people who need to use their walker for assistance as they're standing and seated. Some people who want to have 8-pound ankle weights. So being able to respond to all of them, you just do what works for your body. We typically recommend 2 sets of 8. After we've warmed up through our chair, sit, and stand, or our wide leg squat, we move on into our standing leg curl. We joke often that you get 1 free extra squat as you make your way to the back of the chair. Moving the chair or ensuring that you have enough space behind the chair to get started, we'll move into our leg curl. We start with warming up the front of our thighs or our quadriceps in our chair, sit, and stand. So now we'll move to the back of the legs into the hamstring group. Slight bend in your standing leg. Hands can be on the back of the chair or on the wall or whatever feels comfortable for you or for your participant. Slight bend in your standing leg, and then just bringing the heel towards the bottom and then lowering down. So bringing the heel up and in towards the glutes and lowering down. Even without extra resistance of the ankle weight, I'm feeling the strength in the stability of my hamstrings or the back of my upper thigh. And I'm halfway through, just lifting and lowering. Some cues here might be to try to keep the shoulders stacked over the hips, the slight bend in the knee, keep the breath flowing and easeful, and to engage the abdominals by thinking about having a strong, sturdy core and base. And release. You can shake it out or dance it out depending on your playlist, and taking it to the other side. Slight bend in the knee, shoulders stacked over the hips. Bring the knees in line and then bring the back heel towards the bottom. Inhale, lift, and lower. I'm choosing the word bottom. Depending on your group, you might say butt or glutes or behind. All of the things to say we're lifting up and back. Lifting and lowering. Using the strength of the back of the upper thigh rather than any momentum to swing into it. And we're already feeling the work. And I've got 2 more. And last one. Great job, and it never hurts to smile. Release, and we'll come back to the chair. From seated, an opportunity to have perhaps a yoga block, one of the pool noodles, or the towels if you've invited folks to bring those, or clasping the hands under the thigh to create a little bit more space to be able to extend the leg long. Stacking shoulders over the hips, engaging the abdominals by thinking about creating less space between the lower rib cage and the hip, so kind of curling in, hands under the thigh, and then kick the heel, extend forward, and then slowly lower down. Kick the leg, extend forward, and slowly lower down. So this one works the quadriceps, the front of the thigh, and the back of the thigh. I can feel my hamstrings stabilizing as well. And again, we're staying within our range of motion, we're moving nice and fluidly, and we're feeling the resistance on the lift up and the lower down. Last one, lift and lower. So that pool noodle block or towel is particularly helpful for those in taller bodies so that they have more space for the leg. And then take it to the other side for a count of 8. Extending and bending. Extending and bending. 6 more, keep the breath fluid. Engage and squeeze and hold at the top and slowly lower, as though you're resisting the pull of gravity. Lift and lower. Keep breathing. Keep the shoulders over the hips. Kick and lower. Kick and lower. Last time, reach up, hold, and lower, release. That's our third move. We'll move on to our side hip raise now. So you get another free squat. We start with our lower body to increase heat, warm up, and use our largest muscles first. So our first dynamic move is our wide leg squat or our chair sit and stand. And that really works our hips, our glutes, our thighs, all of the things that help us stabilize. So we'll take a seat. Hands can be on the chair, on a walker, against a wall, or crossed over the chest. And we'll stand up and out of the chair, feel the pressure and the weight and the shift, finding our proprioception. This is even a balance challenge for some of us as we rise up and slowly lower down. So I'm using an option of actually coming all the way down to the seat and then rising up. Some of your participants might want to slowly lower and lift, working on the strength without the full range of motion. Or maybe you have some folks who want to lower to hover and rise back up. Lower to hover and rise back up. So there's so many different cues for this move that people ask about, particularly around where the knees are and the ankle and all of these things. But what we know from community-based physical activity promotion programs is that you are going to have a wide variety of participants and abilities. So invite people to do what works for them, to check in with their body, and to do as many repetitions as they like. We recommend 2 sets of 8 repetitions, so 8 movements in the wide leg squat. Take a breather and then do 8 again, so 2 sets of 8. As you progress, you might be able to cue 10 repetitions and 2 sets, or increase the weight. There's ways to stay with the base moves, but to make it more advanced or more challenging as the program continues on. As you may have heard from the demonstration, we'll do 8 more just to listen into some of the cues, is having your hands in your balance and rising up, feeling the lower body activate and engage, and lowering down as it feels good for your range of motion. Often we have pretty weak glutes, and so our knees might knock in or out, and just trying to remind people to keep their knees and their toes going in the same direction. So if somebody typically walks at about a 45-degree angle with their toes, just having the knees follow that, or letting the knees come in so we're not overcompensating and not stacking the bone on bone. So rising up and slowly lowering down. The knees might hover over the toes. I know we often hear, make sure to keep the knees behind the toes, but that's really just a generalized cue. It's really more important that we're keeping the weight behind us, we're staying within our range of motion, and we're feeling the lower body fire up as we lift and lower. Again, hands can be wherever it serves you, and we're going for 2 sets of however many repetitions they can get, and reminding folks that they might be getting 10, you might be getting 8, someone else might be getting 3, and all movement counts. Moving from our wide leg squat, we take it to behind the chair, and we often joke that you get a free squat as you stand up and move behind the chair. Our second move is a standing leg curl, bringing the movement specifically towards the back of the leg, the back of the upper thigh or the hamstring group. Slight bend in the standing leg, lifting up and out, stacking shoulders over the hips. Hands can be on a chair or a wall or at heart center, whatever feels good for the participant. Bringing the heel up and squeezing and lowering down. So we're aiming for a 90-degree angle with ankle, knee, and hip, and just staying in the range of motion. Again, slow is the name of the game as we slowly lift up and lower down. Lift up and slowly fight against gravity as you lower down, and 2 more, lifting and lowering, lifting and lowering. Shake it out, take a break, slight bend in the other standing leg, and take it to the other side. Knees lined up, stacking shoulders over the hips, bring the heel up and behind you, and slowly lower down. Reminding folks to keep their breath flowing. This might be where you introduce the concept of the week and say something like, we've got 4 more, and you can count on your chair with your own hand as you lift and lower, and ask folks about their fruit and vegetable consumption or another thing that was going on in the week or through the prompts of that session's group dynamics component. And last one, lift, lower, shake it out, and take a seat. Purposefully squatting back down, taking a seat. This is where a towel, a block, or one of those pool noodles cut up would be helpful for under the thigh for those living in taller bodies, so that they have space so they're not stuck kicking out. Another option is to interlace the hands under the thigh, roll the shoulders back, stacking shoulders over the hips, kicking the heel, extending forward, and slowly lowering down. Trying to line the ankle, knee, and hip again in a straight line this time, and lowering. We're at 3. Keep breathing, sit up tall, Fight against gravity on your way down. Feeling the back of the leg and the front of the leg firing up, protecting that knee so we can walk up and down the stairs, we can get in and out of the car, we can keep up with the grandkids, all of these functions of daily living. Last two. Lift and hold and lower. Starting to feel the work even without weight, so just being really intentional and slow. Taking to the other side, maybe finding the opposite interlace if that works for you, or shifting. Taking it to the other side, maybe finding the opposite interlace, or shifting the block, noodle, or towel if that is appropriate. Stacking the shoulders over the hips, extend the knee long, and slowly lower. Breathing fluidly, activating the muscles, fighting against gravity as we move nice and slowly, halfway there. And 3 more. Last 2. And 1. Slowly lower, and then we'll stand up one more time. Not one more time total, just again. This time, we stand behind the chair and we're gonna engage with what we call the side leg raise. I'll face you for a moment because one of the things that we're talking about is stacking shoulders over hips. And this is one of the moves that we often see people using range of motion, or coming out of their range of motion and engaging in that momentum swing as they swing up and out to the side by compensating with the standing leg and hinging over. So we'll remind folks to stand nice and tall and proud, stacking the shoulders over the hips, slight bend in the knee, and then take the leg up and out to the side. If this feels like too much, just tapping out to the side, keeping the foot on the ground is also an option and still engages the muscles on the side of the upper leg. So one option is toe taps or lifting up and out, trying to keep the shoulder over the hip nice and stable and sturdy in the standing leg for 3 and 2. Last one, taking it to the other side. So again, hands can be on the chair, on the wall, slight bend in the standing leg. Think about standing up tall and strong and only lifting the leg as much as you need to feel that activation on the outside of the upper thigh. 4, 3, 2, last one. Muscles are heated up, fired up, we're ready to go. Back to the chair, and that's our lower body movements. Moving back to the chair for some of our upper body options. Another free squat, option to stay seated for bicep curls or to take them standing. Just like we do in the functional fitness, it will be a full hammer curl to engage both of the muscles in the biceps. So facing the dumbbell or your fist forward to start, and then once you pass the 90-degree angle, bringing the big donut side of the fist out to the side and squeezing in towards the shoulder, and then reversing the move on the way down. So we say this is big donut and little donut of the fists, or you can have the dumbbells facing forward or towards the chest. Stacking the shoulders over the hips, breathing in, feeling grounded and rooted in the lower body, and then inhale, rise up, bring the big donuts out to the side, and then slowly lower down. Yes, this is our bicep move, but you might be feeling it on the back of the upper arms as well in the tricep area. We're gonna go for 6 more. So again, just like with the lower body, we're going nice and slow, really feeling the muscles fire up, squeezing as we lift and engaging as we lower, fighting that sensation to just fall into the pull of gravity, and just keep fluid in the breath. 2, last one, lift and lower. Make sure we get the full range for that final move.
Our next move is an overhead press, again, which could be done from a seated position or from standing. So from seated, bringing the arms up into a goal post, or from standing, doing the same. The arms in a goal post, reaching up and overhead, and then exhale, coming back down. Again, aiming for a 90-degree angle with the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. Reaching up and over and down. That's 2. We'll go for 6 more. Gentle reminder that there are modifications for upper and lower body mobility needs. So this is one that we see with a lot of shoulder replacements or shoulder injuries, that you might invite folks to just bring the arms up and overhead. So still activating the shoulders, but without the extra overhead movement. And last one. And slowly lower. So if there's weights involved, slowly lowering them down, or even being just really intentional with the muscular engagement. Our next move is a seated row. From seated, invite participants to come to an edge that still feels supported and safe and grounded. Hinging from the hips, so open in the chest and hinging from the hips and forward. Have the dumbbells down by the side, or do this without any weights and you'll still feel the great move. And one of the things to think about or cue is like you're pulling your pants up and on and then slowly lowering down. That's one cue. Perhaps you say squeeze the shoulder blades together as though you're trying to keep a pencil or a penny back there, and lower down. We're breathing fluidly, resisting the pull of gravity, and activating the back body as well as the arms, and lowering. We're also engaging the abdominals by keeping us nice and sturdy and steady. And 3 more. Keep breathing, keeping the spine in a neutral direction, even from the hinge, so the crown of the head reaching up and forward. Last one, and then slowly rise up, planting the weights by the side and taking a break, or continuing with the movement. Remembering to do 2 sets of your seated row as well if you'd like. Just thinking one of the biggest cues is that hinge forward, squeezing the shoulder blades, trying not to round down and in. And if folks are unable to hinge forward, perhaps just keeping them upright and working on a little bit more of a tricep or back of the upper arm variation and movement without engaging the abdominals. Our next move is towards the back of the chair. Our toe stand brings the movement into our calves. Coming to the back of the chair again, or having the wall available, because this one actually challenges our balance a little bit more with those smaller leg muscles. As we stack the shoulders over the hips, shift the weight onto the toes, lift the heels, and slowly lower down. This one is also really easy to try to speed through, but just really fighting that sensation of falling into gravity, but instead lift, hold, squeeze, and slowly lower down. Lift, hold, squeeze, and slowly lower down. Think about lifting the crown of the head towards the ceiling tiles or towards the sky if you're outside, engaging the back of the lower legs. You can repeat this twice with a little bit of a break, maybe an ankle roll or a little bit of movement in between the 2 moves as well. So those are our strength training moves, and then we move into our balance and flexibility options. The first option is tree stand or tree pose, hand on the chair or on the wall again, or maybe hands at heart center or by the side. Stop 1 is to find a slight bend in the standing leg and come to the toes of the opposite leg, moving the knee out, external hip rotation of the other leg. Staying here, or maybe bringing the base of the foot towards the calf of the standing leg. And then having hand on the chair or reaching the arms up and out as they practice their balance move, keeping the hip points forward as the knee comes out to the side, stacking shoulders over hips, holding for about 30 seconds or 6 breaths. You can use a watch or a clock or your own breath to cue for how long you would hold the pose. Then bringing the knee back towards the front of the room and releasing down. Again, maybe there's a little bit of movement and play, maybe your playlist is going and you're able to move as you transition to the other side. And taking it to the other side. Find stability on the standing leg, stacking shoulder over hip, come to the toes of the opposite leg and lead the knee out to the side. This is that external hip rotation, great place to be working on holding the chair or the wall or working to bring the hand away from the wall with the toes still on the ground. If this feels like old hat, an invitation to bring the sole of the foot onto the inner calf, working on pressing the calf against the foot and the foot against the calf and finding stability. If perhaps midway through the program or if someone has exceptional balance, they might want to bring the sole of the foot to the upper inner thigh. They may do so, but just as a reminder, not to bring the sole of the foot onto the inside of the knee, but instead above the knee or below the knee are our safer places to be, so we're not knocking the joint out to the side. Dropping the toe, bringing the knee back together and releasing. So holding for about 30 seconds or 6 breaths on each side. Next move is our seated figure 4 to stretch our outer hip. So we can come back to our chair and we have a few options to start here. For our seated figure 4, there's a couple of different steps to help people find the stretch and the sensation in the outer hip. Option 1 is to bring one ankle in front of the other. Let the knee relax down and stay here. Option 2 is to keep the ankle in front of the opposite ankle, the knee out to the side and hinge forward. That might create more of a sensation on the outer hip. If this doesn't feel like enough for the participant, they can draw the leg up and over, bringing the ankle on top of the thigh. Inhale, lift head, neck, and chest, and exhale, hinging forward just like they did in that seated row. An invitation to really work on letting the knee drop out into the side, but not an encouragement to press it down. Instead, just working from the hinge of the hips and the release through breath, but not through force. This is one of the things folks often like to do because it's so easily available. So encouraging people to have their hands somewhere else or just gently resting on their legs. And also flexing the top ankle, flexing at the foot so that we're protecting the knee as we hinge forward. And then slowly draw it down, release, and take it to the other side. So I'll walk us through a couple of steps and options along the way, reminding people that each side could be very different and each day as we greet the posture can be different and all are okay. Just be where you are and breathe for the 30 seconds. So stacking the opposite ankle in front. Option 1, just letting the knee drop down into the side. Option 2 is to hinge forward, perhaps feeling more of a sensation in the outer hip. Option 3 would be to draw the ankle up and over the thigh, staying here. And option 4 is to hinge forward. Finding the breath, feeling the hip stretch, and then rising up and releasing the leg. It can drag down or lift off and release. Our next move is pyramid, and I'm going to show 2 different variations, one from seated and one from standing. Particularly in the first couple of sessions, perhaps invite everyone to really feel like they can master the seated variation. Turning away from you, I'll show from the side. So you'll be really familiar with this from the functional fitness assessment as well. Planting one leg on the ground, looking for about a 90-degree angle depending on the length of the leg or the height of the chair, and extending the other leg out. I can feel that my leg is stuck onto the chair, so inviting the participant to come towards the edge of the seat and extending the leg long. The toes come up towards the nose, so flexing at the footer and the ankle. Inhale, bring the shoulder blades together, stack the shoulders over the hips, stay here, or start to hinge forward. Stay here or start to reach for the toes. Reaching for the toes is just as activating as actually touching the toes. So just reaching for the toes, breathing for about 4 more breaths or 30 seconds in total, and then rising up and releasing and taking to the other side. So from this angle, you'll see that the leg is at about a 90-degree angle. I'm close to the edge of the chair. I extend the opposite leg, toes towards the sky, shoulders down and back, hinging from the hips, reaching out, staying here or reaching my hands forward or reaching my fingertips towards the toes, wherever I am on either side or day, and just breathing into the sensations. And then release. So that's our modified pyramid pose or toe touch that we've seen in our functional fitness assessment. I'll show now a standing variation or option. The standing variation or option for our pyramid pose can actually utilize the chair in two different ways. The first variation is to face the chair with the back of the chair facing you, but having the seat of the chair in front of you. Slight bend in the knees and take one step back, squaring the hips behind you, and then reaching for the back of the chair, or if the hamstrings are lengthened, towards the seat of the chair. Kicking the hips back, hinging, squeezing the shoulder blades together, lifting through the lower abdominals, and staying here, getting the work in the upper thigh that's in front. Breathing deeply here, or hands on the back of the chair, whatever serves you or your participant, for a full 30 seconds. To come out of this move, an invitation to use the back of the chair, slight bend in the knees, and to come up nice and slow. This feels a little bit like an inversion because we're bringing the head down, so just coming in and out slowly and steadily. Taking it to the other side from the same position, just to show from a different angle, slight bend in the knees, step back with the opposite leg, lift head, neck, and chest, squeezing shoulder blades together and hinging from the hips. This can be a great place to be, or reaching for the back of the chair, nice and long, or the front of the chair, nice and long, kicking the hips back and breathing. With or without weights, this lift protocol really activates the lower body, so giving participants permission and space to really flex and stretch into those spaces. Bending in both knees, walking to the top of the chair, and standing up. Our third option for our pyramid pose is to use the back of the chair. So the tallest height is available to me almost immediately. So slight bend in the knees, take a step back, again both hips pressing back, squeezing shoulder blades together, and just hinging forward, and have a nice place to rest here. One thing to really encourage though is not to slump into it or to relax into the shoulders, but instead to kick the hips back, to feel the length in the back of the upper thigh as you slowly lower down. This can help them find their range of motion, and just breathe. Again, someone could be doing this from seated, from the front of the chair, the back of the chair, whatever works for them for their 30-second release. And then since we're already upright, it's the slight bend, the step together, and the rise up. Shaking it out and taking it to the other side. Pressing the hips back, lift and lengthen, and hinge and lean and hold for a full 30 seconds. Breathing deeply and surrendering. Bend, step forward, and release. After 30 seconds, of course. Bringing the work back into our upper body, but also our side body for a lateral stretch. Opportunity to bring the arms up and overhead, dropping one arm and then reaching the shoulder up and towards the ear and hinging. This is step one. Step two is a stretch of the cervical spine by looking at the bend in the crease of the elbow. If this feels good, they might start to lean a little bit more, thinking about lengthening both sides and breathing for the full 30 seconds or about 6 breaths. And then coming out of it the way they came in, reaching arms up and overhead, and exhaling, releasing. Then taking it to the other side, and I'll show a different variation. Bringing the arms up and overhead, reach, lift, and lengthen. Option to take one hand to the forearm, so not right at the joint, but onto the forearm as you lift up and lengthen both arms, and then hinge to the side. Again, gazing forward, down, or up, whatever feels appropriate for your neck or for your participant's neck. reaching up and over. One cue is to think about you're reaching over a giant beach ball, so you're lengthening both sides of the body, taking it for that final big breath cycle, coming back on center and releasing. So the options are to leave one arm down, reach one arm up and over, or to reach the arms up and find an interlace to reach up and over and release. The final move is our back scratch. Again, something that they'll be familiar with from the functional fitness assessment if you're doing those. And I'm going to demonstrate from behind. So one of the ways to do this is to invite your participants to come to a T, bringing the wrists, elbows, and shoulders in line. From here, big breath in and up, and then bend one elbow behind the head and plant the middle finger on the middle of the spine. The other arm reaches out, flips the palm, and brings the back of the palm towards the low back or the sacrum. We often say the watch wrist towards the low back. This is where someone might be lengthening, lifting, breathing for a full 6 breaths, and then unwind. Release to the T, maybe release the arms down and by the side, and then come back up. And then we'll take it to the other side where one arm lifts up and behind, middle finger on the spine, and the opposite hand reaches for the low back. They can walk their fingertips closer and closer together. Maybe they overlap, maybe they interlace, maybe they use that towel they've brought or that noodle, or just even holding on to the own fabric of their clothing as they continue to breathe. One big cue here is that sometimes people really want their fingertips to connect, so they'll lift up and out of the chest, but instead invite them to keep the shoulders stacked over the hips and just finding the natural range of motion to find the stretch in the upper back, the shoulders, and then releasing out to the T or down and by the side. And with that, give yourself a round of applause as well as your participants, because they completed strength training, balance and flexibility, multi-component physical activity that's needed for the ability to age in place, complete activities of daily living. And thank you so much. I hope some of those cues were helpful and that you feel good in your body as well.